The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. Most men pursue pleasure with such breathless haste that they hurry past it. The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly one you will never have. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true, the other is to refuse to believe what is true. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen, but if one will, are to be lived. One can advise comfortably from a safe port. Trouble is the common denominator of living. It is the great equalizer. There is nothing with which every man is so afraid as getting to know how enormously much he is capable of and becoming. If anyone on the verge of actions should judge himself according to the outcome, he would never begin. Life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forwards. It belongs to the imperfection of everything human that man can only attain his desire by passing through its opposite. People demand freedom of speech as compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use. Our life always expresses the result of our dominant thoughts. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Life has its own hidden forces which you can only discover by living. It is essential in relationships and all tasks that we concentrate only on what is most significant and important. Once you label me, you negate me. Boredom is the root of all evil, the despairing refusal to be oneself. It is one thing to introduce a new doctrine into the world, it is something else to live it. To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily, not to dare is to lose oneself. During the first period of a man's life, the greatest danger is not to take the risk. Face the facts of being what you are, for that is what changes what you are. Personality is only ripe when a man has made the truth his own. I feel as if I were a piece in a game of chess when my opponent says that piece cannot be moved. Far from idleness being the root of all evil, it is rather the only true good. Love is all, it gives all, and it takes all. Don't forget to love yourself. Love is the expression of the one who loves, not of the one who is loved. Those who think they can love only the people they prefer do not love at all. Love discovers truths about individuals that others cannot see. To cheat oneself out of love is the most terrible deception. It is an eternal loss for which there is no reparation, either in time or in eternity. When one has once fully entered the realm of love, the world, no matter how imperfect, becomes rich and beautiful. It consists solely of opportunities for love. Men think that it's impossible for a human being to love his enemies, for enemies are hardly able to endure the sight of one another. Well, then, shut your eyes and your enemy looks just like your neighbor. All distinctions between the many different kinds of love are essentially abolished by Christianity. Unhappiness is not to love without being loved, but to be loved when one does not love. To love another in spite of his weaknesses and errors and imperfections is not perfect love. No, to love is to find him lovable in spite of and together with his weaknesses and errors and imperfections. The hidden life of love, in its most inward depths, is unfathomable and still has a boundless relationship with the whole of its existence. As the quiet lake is fed by the flow of hidden springs, which no eye sees, so a human being's love is grounded in God's love. If there were no spring at the bottom, if God were not love, there would be neither a lake nor human love. Love does not alter the beloved, it alters itself. In addition to my other numerous acquaintances, I have one more intimate confidant. My depression is the most faithful mistress I have known. No wonder, then, that I return the love. To love another person is to help them love God. Ulysses was not comely, but he was eloquent. Yet he fired 2 goddesses of the sea with love. Take away the paradox from the thinker and you have a professor. A man who is a physical being is always turned toward the outside, thinking that his happiness lies outside of him. Finally turns inward and discovers that the source is within him. It is wretched to have an abundance of intentions and a poverty of action, to be rich in truths and poor in virtues. If a person does not become what he understands, then he does not understand it either. If I could only have the experience of meeting a passionate thinker, that is, someone who honestly and honorably expressed in his life what he has understood. All existence issues are passionate. To think about them so as to leave out passion is not to think about them at all. It is to forget the point that one indeed is oneself an existing person. To exist is an art. The subjective thinker is aesthetic enough for his life to have aesthetic content, ethical enough to regulate it, passionate enough in thinking to master it. The subjective thinker is continually striving, is always in the process of becoming. How far the subjective thinker might be along that road, whether a long way or short, makes no essential difference. It is, after all, just a finitely relative comparison. As long as he is existing, he is in the process of becoming. The essential sermon is one's own existence. A person preaches with this every hour of the day and with power quite different from that of the most eloquent speaker in his most eloquent moment. To let your mouth run with eloquent babbling when such talk is the opposite of your life is in the deepest sense nonsense. You become liable to eternal judgment. There are many people who arrive at conclusions in life much the way schoolboys do. They cheat their teachers by copying the answer book without having worked the problems themselves. To venture the truth is what gives human life and the human situation pith and meaning. To venture is the fountainhead of inspiration. Calculating is the sworn enemy of enthusiasm. The mirage whereby the earthly person drags out time and keeps the eternal away, whereby one cheats God, himself, and his generation.